big boy slate. No time for messing around. Apologies for being a couple minutes late. The reason because we discovered, or at least I discovered, nerf and buff. I didn't know that buff means you artificially pump up a number. Nerf means you automatically pump it down. When we're talking about minutes projection, we got Keith here. You guys know Keith Eister. Amongst a lot of the things he does here, he's on the projection team. I don't think he's on there today, but we were talking about the concept of projecting minutes, and I'm sure we'll dig into that more. As well as to Keith, we got Tim, Tasteful Tides. It is a massive, massive slate. Not a lot of time for shenanigans. Nobody on the back half of a back-to-back because there was no basketball played yesterday. I think a couple teams are on the front half. We'll talk about that as we go. I believe Dallas is one of them. Just a plethora of body parts we're monitoring before the slate starts. Still 2 hours out. Joel Embiid's got that knee. That's a big one. And it seems like a good spot. If there's any sort of questions against Washington, they're not necessarily going to need him. And he legit did hurt himself in his last game. He kind of limped to the finish line there in the end. Anthony Edwards has a hip. He is questionable. Jalen Brunson's got an ankle, questionable. Ayton's questionable. Brogdon, his teammates, questionable. John Collins may or may not play. Utah already plenty thin. We'll talk about more as we progress. Mark Williams, somehow he was questionable a week ago, and now he's doubtful after missing several more games. Who knows what's going on there with Charlotte and their injury reporting. So much to get to. Keith, welcome to the show. It's a lot, man. It's a lot to dig into today. Massive, massive slate. So many stars. And, a lot of things we're going to say, hopefully, it might just get thrown in the trash in an hour or so because the slate may change. But we're going to do the best we can until we lead into the crunch time. Crunch time coming about 6:20 or so on the East Coast, taking y'all up to lock. But, Keith, welcome. We excited?
Man, excited. Overwhelmed for sure. Definitely a lot to dig into here. A lot of moving parts. There's going to be some decisions to be made before lock, probably some decisions to be made after lock as well. Like you said, stars all over the place, stars in really good spots, stars on the injury report, uncertain rotations with the situations in New York and Detroit and Utah. So all kinds of moving parts on this slate. Starting lineups are going to be important throughout the entire night. And, of course, the injury report. So absolutely a ton to dig into.
Yeah, speaking of starting lineups, Mitch Robb is going to be out for several months there for New York. Tim, you said this before the show that Sims was announced the starter. Did I miss where he was announced the starter? I'm trying to find it on Twitter. Not that I don't trust your source, but I don't see it anywhere. Is that just our projection team making the call? Or we saw it?
Yeah,
there was There was some behind-the-scenes conversation about that. There's a Knicks beat reporter that said Knicks have given strong consideration to starting Jericho Sims at center, but it's not official yet.
He is 3K on DK. And he does have power forward eligibility, which could be interesting, but that'll be an interesting conversation because very well he could start, and it appears he will. But I don't think
were you accusing me of making that up out of thin air?
No. I was just curious where you found that. That's all. Yeah, I was on Twitter, and I did a quick search. And I'm like, I can't find that news anywhere. Just do it on the fly. But I'm sure you're on top. You're not going to just. That's a chop fact. I wouldn't do that. That's it for head.
I'm not into the conspiracy theories like some of us.
Yes, but Jericho Sims is going to start now, and I'm curious if he's going to be interesting value or not because he might just be somebody that plays 20 minutes. Have fun with that for the projection team. How about yourself, Tim? Massive slate, a lot of good moving parts. And the other interesting thing is, Keith talked about all the stars in good spots. It's mostly on DK, a little bit more so than FanDuel, but the stars have great prices. They're almost too cheap. Instead of 10K, they should be 11K. Some of these guys. But of course, we still live in the world with salary cap, and it's hard to get so many of them. But Luka without Kyrie is just going to pop. He looks spectacular, but how do you make him work is sort of the question. And maybe we sort of get forced into stars and scrubs, but I don't like to make definitive statements 2 hours in, before we tip off. And there's still many news, droplets we're waiting for, especially if Embiid gets ruled out, which can certainly happen. And Philadelphia, they're going to do us no favors. They don't tell us that. You find out when Embiid's playing, if he's not playing, based upon the starting lineup, but it's dropped by they tweet it out, and that's it. They don't tell you if he's playing or not. It's ridiculous. But that's a whole other rant. We don't have time for such things, Tim. But yeah, anything you want to say as far as the slate, big picture wise? By all means, fire it off. Otherwise, we'll we're gonna do the old game by game and buckle up. It's going to be a big one.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly have the stars on the slate. It's like amazing spots for these big time names, but the value is so shaky. So by going like double spend up, I noticed like you have to get really thin at value. So I'm hoping that a little bit more value opens up, because right now I'm feeling a lot more comfortable with one stud, at least on DK. But it's like, which one do you choose? That's like impossible. So yeah. So I mean, I'm hoping a little bit more value opens up, but yeah, it's going to be a really it's pretty tough slate. It's gonna be fun to break down.
Yeah, Luka all by himself against Memphis there. Be a fun little game stack. Run Bane on the other side with how much Bane hates Dallas, how much he likes to stick it to Dallas for not drafting him. Embiid, if he plays versus Washington, like the only thing that's going to stop him is the scoreboard, right? I mean, if it's just the game gets completely out of hand. Halliburton versus Detroit looks amazing. Do you have that one key stud? If you're still trying to figure it out, or it'll be whatever. Like, okay, I need a point guard, and now I get 11K. Or is there one in mind you want to build around, or it's just going to happen organically?
I'm building around Luka.
Okay, yeah.
It's whether or not I want to play Luka and Embiid. That's what I want to do, but that only leaves me like 4,300 or something like that per player, which is just a little bit short. And then I have to fade like this really juicy mid range. So I'm not really sure, but I would like to build around Luka. He's my favorite stud.
13-game slate. The other interesting thing is, as far as like the dynamics of the slate, it's kind of split in two. It's almost like a double header. The first 11 of the 13 games tip off in air quotes, lock. That's probably the better word, between 7 and 8, right? The first hour we have 11 of the 13 games are locked in, and then we have to wait 2 hours for the back half of the doubleheader. Brooklyn, Sacramento, 10 o'clock, Portland, and the Clippers, 10:30. We are waiting for Portland news. I don't think Brock. Well, we'll see. Ayton and Brogdon are both officially questionable. We did project them in because we generally lean in, but yeah, we're probably not going to get that at any point, but you never know. It's possible. How about yourself, Keith? Do you have a stud that you want to build around necessarily? Or I know you run more lineups than the two of us, so maybe you're just kind of like getting a little bit of this guy, a little bit of that guy, and then hopefully you land in the right combination. What's the strategy?
It's Luka for me as well, and it's just because of how the positional stuff works out. Like, there's value that should be opening up here at center. I talked about 3 situations that I'm monitoring. Like whoever starts for Detroit, like if it's Wiseman, it's not going to be comfortable. But he's in play, I think, regardless. He's going to play some minutes tonight. In New York, there's obviously no Mitch Rob, so somebody's going to start popping there. If they go Sims in the starting lineup, I think Hartenstein is still a very viable play off the bench. I would guess that he ends up projected for more minutes than Sims, even if Sims is starting. So both of those guys are going to be in play. And then in Utah, you have no Walker Kessler. So your 7 is going to be in play as well. So there's value all over the uncomfortable value that we have and the uncertain rotations are what make it uncomfortable. But the big men are generally pretty good per minute producers. I just think that's where you lean into the value tonight with the big guys. And so paying up at point guard makes a lot of sense to me, just from a roster construction. That being said, if Embiid does play, it is a phenomenal spot for Embiid, and I would want to make sure I'm over the field on him as well.
Do want to say what's up to the chat before we fully get going. Hit that like button. Do subscribe. Do turn on those notifications. Join the conversation. We'll do my best to get to them as far as bringing them up, and especially if they happen to correlate with the conversation we're having. But again, to get through 13 games, a little bit tricky sometimes. But Tim, I know you said you don't like conspiracies, but I'm going to come up with one right off the fly. Hoosier Sang Banner says that Indiana Fever won the draft lottery. The Indiana Fever, the WNBA team. Caitlin Clark, please. From it's close enough to Iowa, right? I mean, come on. That just feels like I don't know who's monitoring those lotto balls, but I don't even know if she's coming out or not, because I think she makes much more money staying in school. It's a whole other conversation we could have for another day. Cleveland and Orlando is the very first game on the slate. And if there's any games like you don't really have any take on, you're like, no, I'm not playing anybody, just say, yeah, it's just a pass. There's no reason to say, to fully dig into. If you're just not into it, 13 games, you cannot like them all equally. Yeah, 227 is a total here. Cleveland is a 2-point dog. As far as the Cavs, they're still without Mobley. They're still without LeVert. Orlando, Suggs officially questionable. Fultz and Carter, they've been out for a while. They're still going to continue to be out. I'm doing a refresh to see if we can get a new batch of ownership updated on the old lineup HQ. I know our last one was let's see. Oh, it just happened. There you go. Give it a refresh if you're playing the home version of this. Keith and Keith and Tim, by all means, do the same yourself.
Of all people to call me. Unbelievable.
Is that insulting? Is that an insult? I don't know. He's our teammates on the People Show on the weekends.
I don't know. I guess in certain ways it's a compliment. Certain ways
there you go.
Not so much. Yeah.
Yeah. The people were comparing him to Kurt Warner over the weekend. He's like Kurt Warner doppelganger. Things could be worse.
Right.
Yeah. That is the first game, Tim. We got our Cleveland versus Orlando. Nothing really popping as far as ownership. Donovan Mitchell, one of those studs you can get to, you can pay for. Is he going to be the best stud on the slate? Probably not. He's a little bit cheaper than some of the other ones, of course. But this is not one of the more appealing games for me. Feel free to sell me on somebody. Cleveland and Orlando. Go for it, Tim.
Yeah, I've got nobody to sell you on in this game, really. I think that if I had to pick one player from Cleveland, it would be Jared Allen, just because paying like in the mid-range at center is going to be very, very contrarian. But for the most part, I have no interest in this game. This game is going to be very, very slow paced. These two teams are great defensively. I think Paulo Banchero maybe at 8,400, possibly at less than 1% would be interesting if I was making 150. But other than that, this game is really a cross-off for me.
We do have an if-then for this. If Suggs is out, and still nobody projects as a positive DK value if Suggs is out. So that's something you can kind of keep an eye on. But, yeah, if you want to play Franz Wagner or Banchero or Cole Anthony, by all means, I guess you can play him. But I'm not excited to play anybody there. In the Cleveland side, I agree. I guess Allen's fine. But he's basically fully priced. Keith, you got anything here as far as Cleveland or Orlando? We're starting out with a whimper, I believe.
We are starting out with a whimper. I'm not real interested in this game either. Orlando's been amazing on the defensive end this season. Cleveland has as well. They're improving now that Allen is healthy as well. So just kind of a cross off for me. Even if Suggs were to miss, like they're getting Isaac back. It's been announced that he's going to play, so that kind of thins out the minutes a little bit. Like there's nothing to like here.
Okay. So for that reason, let's just move on. Let's talk about my Miami Heat versus the Charlotte Hornets. It's 221 as far as the total. The Heat are 4-point favorites here. They are still without Bam Adebayo. Otherwise, for Miami, I think Lowry is questionable. That's kind of a big one, I guess, to some degree. Haywood Highsmith is still out. Of course, Tyler Hero still out. He's been out for a while with that ankle of his. I guess Jaquez, Richardson would get bumps, but they're not like super, super cheap. But the matchup is pretty good. Jaime Jaquez and Richardson probably starts. Jaquez, they like to kind of bring him off the bench. I assume that's what would happen if Lowry doesn't go. Williams was officially ruled out for Charlotte. He was doubtful, so that's no surprise there. We're expecting Nick Richards to draw the start for Charlotte. LaMelo, obviously, still out for the Heat. No, for the Hornets. I'll let you start here, Keith, when it comes to this game. Whichever side you prefer, go for it.
On the Miami side, Kyle Lowry does matter just because they're already so shorthanded that we would start seeing like upper 30s minutes projections here, I think. Like guys like Josh Richardson would be 35 plus. Jimmy Butler would certainly be approaching 40. Jaquez would be up in the upper 30s, I think. We could really condense the minutes here. Outside of that, I think Orlando Robinson is really interesting. The price tag is coming up, but center is so strong on this slate that I'm having trouble getting to him. It's an awesome spot against Charlotte, especially with no Mark Williams on the other side. Just at 5,600, I want to have some exposure to Orlando Robinson just because I think he could absolutely go off in this spot. I think there's upwards mobility on the minutes as well. We've seen him play into the 30s before, currently projected at 29. If Lowry gets ruled out, maybe that's a bigger case for a couple of more minutes for Robinson to be on the floor. So Robinson is really the guy that I have my eye on. Not much else outside of that. I don't think Butler's going to be a priority for me.
On the season, Robinson 1.12 DK fantasy points per minute. But like Jimmy Butler this season, this is obviously not without the on-off stuff. He gets better in the absence of some players, but just 1.1 fantasy points per minute. This really feels disappointing. You got to pay for him if you want him. The matchup is good, and theoretically, he should like be the guy that like just puts the team on his back and takes it home here versus Charlotte. But we just kind of, and he's more of a playoff guy. If you want to do that narrative as well, he's always battling some sort of injury. It seems like we're talking about studs, Keith. Butler, is he somebody you're prioritizing? Because in years past, this feels like something we would jump on, but I don't know. Like he's fine, but it's not like this like smash can't miss. Which
I agree. Like the usage isn't as high as you would want it to be for a superstar without the other superstar on the team. Like with Bam out, you would think that Jimmy just does everything, and like he does a little bit of everything, but it's just not quite as much as you would want it to be. It's an awesome matchup. Like I said, I'm not prioritizing him today. I don't fault you if you do. Like it's a great spot, but I would like to see the numbers be a little bit better, even with the spot that he's in.
I did run the court IQ. I'm taking Bam and Hero off the court. Butler does get a 3% increase in usage, and good for him. But like I feel like it should be higher. 1.22 fantasy points per minute, which like that's an increase, but I feel like that should be higher. That's still like not anywhere near like elite level. 1.22. It's good, I guess. Well, what do you got here, Tim, as far as Miami? And is Butler on your radar? Because it's just, I feel like we're being charged like last year's price on Butler.
Yeah, it's really tough because I was thinking like he would be like one of those kind of like lower range studs that I would play if Lowry were to miss. But I really don't want to pay that much for a 1.22 fantasy point per minute guy. So I really like that Orlando Robinson call. He's going to be so low owned tonight. 5,600. I think this is a spot where he could absolutely smash. So I love that call. If Lowry were to miss, I really like Josh Richardson also. But I think I'm going to pass on Butler, even if Lowry misses the game.
Hornets?
Yeah, so the Hornets, we got Mark Williams officially out. We've known that Ball has been out for a few games now. So it looks like Nick Richards is going to be very, very popular. I see no reason why you should avoid him other than ownership. He's 4,600. He is he's going to be pretty highly owned. But I think he's a really strong play, especially in like optimal type builds. He should easily pay off that price tag. So he's definitely in the conversation as, top points per dollar play on the entire slate. And he should probably be in your cash games if people are playing cash games tonight.
How do you feel, Keith, as far as the Hornets side? Yeah, and cheap centers. Richards, we'll talk about Hartenstein. We'll talk about Sims. Is Muscala going to get some run today? I want to see Embiid and Muscala battle. That'll be fun.
We're not. We'll wait. We'll talk about it. All right. Sorry.
If you want to talk about we'll get to the Muscala thing, I guess. But yeah. Gafford leaves every game like in the second quarter due to injury. This one he's like, I'm just not even. No, it's not happening. He preempted. We don't know if Embiid's playing or not, but he's out. Keith, the Hornets, and where do you have Richards as far as your cheap centers?
Yeah, he's absolutely in play. It's just that he's center and center only. You're probably playing two centers in most of your lineups, but there's a lot of value at center. I don't think I'm going to be able to get it. He seems to be one of the more popular ones. I don't think I'm going to be able to get over the field. We have a monster ownership number on Muscala. I don't think the field is going to be comfortable playing him at that level. That concerns me that Richards' ownership could be on the rise here as we approach lock. So definitely monitoring the situation. I like Richards as a play, especially with no Bam on the other side, but a little bit concerned about the ownership. You look at 20% ownership right now, and you don't feel like that's a lot, but it's a 13-game slate. There's multiple guys you can play at 5% or less ownership on this slate. So 20% is a lot for a big 13-game slate. And I wouldn't be surprised if that number starts climbing as we approach lock here.
Our update on Embiid is no update because they never give us an update. They never tell you who's in or out until they can give the starting lineup. The Sixers are one of my least favorite teams when it comes to that. Let's move on and talk about Indiana and Detroit. 247 is a total. That is a huge total. Indiana coming off the disappointment, I suppose, losing out there in Vegas, but it was a good run for them. The Pistons have now lost 19 straight games, I believe, which is just impressive. Bagley is doubtful, not officially ruled out. Jalen Duren, he's out with his ankle. We're expecting Cunningham, Hayes, Ivy to start there with Bogdanovich and Isaiah Stewart. Naismith officially questionable for Indiana. Nembhard, I believe, is going to be out for a bit, and Jalen Smith is out. We kind of touched on this briefly. Well, I guess it'll come up just kind of organically here, Keith. But we're trying to figure out this Pistons rotation, and good luck with that. The pieces are the pieces. They're not great. They're losing 18 games in a row because they're pretty terrible collectively. But I don't know, benching your rookie Asar Thompson, like what's the point in that? But we've seen his minutes plummet. But it certainly feels like a game where he could potentially thrive in if they give him a chance. We were talking about him possibly being an interesting, off the board cheapie. Not fully cheap, but it's cheapie. Sure, why not? We'll call him that. But Keith, talk about the Pistons. Feel free to jump over to Indiana. We should love this, right? The game environment's 247. It's going to be fast paced. It's going to be some ugly basketball, at least in the Detroit side. But points will be scored.
Yeah, points will be scored. Indiana is like one of the best DFS environments anytime they're on the slate. They play really fast. They score a ton of points. So teams play fast to try to keep up with them. And then conversely, Indiana's not very good on the defensive end. So sometimes they're able to. I do have some blowout concerns here with Detroit being a little bit shorthanded. I think Bojan back helps their case a little bit to help keep this game close. But it's interesting. I'll be very curious to see what the starting lineup looks like. I think we have Jaden Ivey projected to start right now. I'm with you that I think it could be Asar Thompson. It could also be somebody like Isaiah Livers that jumps in there. Like this is completely up in the air. And then James Wiseman is sitting there as well, and they're really shorthanded on bigs. But
that's who I think might start.
Oh no,
that's who I think.
The only
play Miles Turner. Play all the Miles Turner.
Yeah. The only counter I have to the Wiseman thing is Stewart is their only other big on the roster, so they need somebody off the bench. Like I don't think they can play Stewart and Wiseman unless they're willing to run Wiseman out there for upper 20s minutes, and I don't think they're willing to do that. But yeah, they don't. They're very shorthanded with bigs, so I think they're going to want to stagger Stewart and Wiseman minutes.
Yeah.
Wiseman, is he 3K? I didn't really think about Wiseman because I don't want to play Wiseman. And I've actually played him a couple times this year unsuccessfully, trying to make Wiseman work. Because when he gets run, at least historically, he's been a pretty good fantasy point minute player. He's 5'2" on DK. What?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's too much. Even if he starts, that's too much.
Yeah. I mean, are you serious? What is going on here? 5'2"? That's outrageous. I played him at 3K and I was bad. I was disappointed by it. But 5'2", there's no way in the world I'm playing Wiseman at 5'2". Yeah, Tim, you were thinking about Wiseman at 5'2", or you're thinking for FanDuel?
No. I was just thinking he was going to start. I don't want anyone to play him in DFS. Okay. I was just saying I thought he might start. But please, nobody play him in DFS. No. But yeah, this is an amazing game for fantasy. I actually bet American dollars on the Pistons plus 7.5, and my hot take and survey was that the Pistons actually win this game.
What?
So yeah, I think the Pacers have a little bit of the Vegas flu,
the hangover,
and
I love it.
A little Vegas hangover, and I think the Pistons break their losing streak tonight. So
wait, Tim, I thought you weren't a conspiracy guy.
Yeah.
This is
I'm totally with you on this line of thinking. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Wow. So I love Cade Cunningham. I love Isaiah Stewart. He's power forward eligible, and we're really thin at power forward. We have tons of centers, but this is a great spot for bigs, and Stewart's power forward eligible. So he's an amazing spot. I think Miles Turner gets really lost on the slate. So I think Miles Turner, even in a 3 max setting, I would play because we have all these cheap centers, but then there's Miles Turner in this amazing spot. So I love to get to a little like 2-2 game stack of this game.
Beef Stew feels like a good play in that little 2-2 game stack at 5-7. Bogdanovich is 6'5". I'm okay with that as well. That price shot up pretty quickly. The sites are super proactive. We know the Pacers, how vulnerable they are on the inside. Points in the paint, they give up 3.5 more points in the paint than the second worst team as far as giving points in the paint. That's Washington. And the next worst team is Portland. They give up 4 less points in the paint. Just so you know how terrible Indiana and Washington are as far as yielding points in the paint. It's insane, the drastic difference between the second worst and the worst as it just kind of continues on down. But do you feel the same way there, Keith, as far as a nice little mini game stack? Halliburton's the guy I want, but of course he's super expensive. And if I get one big spend, do I want it to be Halliburton? I'm not mad about it, but is he better than Luka? Probably not. Could he be? Sure. Your thoughts as far as the Pacers in Detroit. And do you like the little game stack as well?
I do like playing this as a little game stack because it's not the closest spread, but I do agree with Tim's line of thinking there that like Indiana has they've been pushing guys into the 40s, like playing 40 minutes in this tournament where games matter. This is a major letdown spot going from Vegas to Detroit. So I'm kind of with Tim there. If I'm playing it, I want to play it with a couple of Pistons. So Halliburton is always in play for sure. I agree with you that he's not amongst my top 3 studs. I definitely have Luka and Embiid ahead. I think SGA is a very interesting combination, and then it depends on what you're considering a stud. But Desmond Bane, I like the spot for him as well, especially if I'm playing Luka. So not getting to a ton of Halliburton, but when I am, I do want to run it back with 1 or 2 of these Pistons. Stewart probably my favorite. I don't mind Bojan. Probably don't have quite enough for Cade, but Stewart and Bojan for sure.
Stewart getting 17% ownership, Bogdanovich 19%. Again, this stuff is fluid. This stuff will change. The closer we get the lock, the more refined the number gets. So don't, hold us to that number. But that's the way things stands right now. But again, so much information still waiting to drop. Anything else here, Tim, as far as Indiana and Detroit, or shall we move on?
I think we can move on.
Do we even talk about Washington and Philadelphia? What's the point? Because
well, I think he went through shoot around, so I think that's a really good sign for Embiid. That's just my opinion. But I mean,
okay,
it's not like he was held out. So I mean, he went through shoot around. My lean is that he plays, and of course this is a 7:00 game, so we'll know. So I think we should talk about it.
Okay, yeah. If you think Embiid plays, by all means, let's have the conversation. 245 is the total. Philadelphia 13-point favorites here. It is an island game for them. Embiid is questionable. That is a big deal because if he doesn't play, there will be a big trickle-down effect. We did have a couple players ruled out. Nothing to do with this game. DeAndre Hunter's not playing basketball tonight. We talked about Bagley, unlikely to go. Officially ruled out. That's Marvin Bagley. Washington, the starting center, Daniel Gafford is out. Shamet is out. And like we said, Embiid currently questionable. We are projecting him in. We're expecting Mike Muscala to guard Embiid. There was air quotes there, and my hands were not free. But, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the Moose versus Embiid matchup which may happen here. We like Embiid, right, Tim? It's just a matter of how much does he smash and how much time. And they say, okay, you're done smashing. It's a 30-point lead. We got to go.
Well, I mean, last time these two teams played, they held it within 5 or 6 points, I think. So, I mean, I love Embiid. He's my second favorite stud behind Luka. I'm trying to play both of them. I'm not sure if I can do that yet. But, one thing I'm not doing is I'm not playing Mike Muscala at 50% ownership with all these value centers that we already have. So there's no chance that I'm doing that. I really hope. I mean, I'll be stunned if he's that high owned.
Same.
We already have all these cheap, amazing center plays. Plus, we have amazing, expensive center plays. We have so many great centers at all price ranges. So I'd be shocked that he's the highest owned. But yeah, I'm not playing Muscala. I don't care that he's the min price. But yeah, so I love Embiid. Obviously, if he sits, it's could be Paul Reed season. That definitely would be Tyrese Maxey. Tobias Harris would be an amazing spot also. So, yeah, I mean, I think Embiid plays. I would like to play him, but I need a little bit more, some more injury news hopefully comes up that I can play both Luka and Embiid. But, yeah, Embiid's an absolutely smash spot. The Wizards are the worst defensive team in all of basketball, or at least top worst, bottom 5. And they are the worst rebounding team in all of basketball.
Defensive rating, they're currently tied with Charlotte, 120.7 defensive rating. Yeah. Rebounding wise, they are the worst rebounding team by far. They rebound 44% of the balls. Second worst team is OKC at 46.8%. So just a truly horrific rebounding team there. And even worse without Gafford. So, it's going to be, if Embiid plays, I don't know what the number, it's just, I'm thinking of props, and I'm thinking rebounding props. You also got to miss. And I don't know if Muscala is going to he's going to force Embiid to miss in order for a rebound to happen, right? All right, jump in here, Keith. But for what it's worth, the Muscala projection is not great. It's 22 minutes, 20 points, 3K. A 0.77 fantasy point winning guy this season, that's not spectacular. That's even worse for a center. That's a terrible number for a center. And I don't know how secure that spot is. It's just, and I would also say that if Embiid doesn't play, I think it probably hurts Muscala's minutes because there's a better chance this game going smaller. Just throw that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point right there. I think the only reason that Muscala is projected for 22 minutes right now is because they just need some sort of size to throw at Embiid, and he's kind of the last man standing. I do think that Coulibaly will attempt to run that spot a little bit and guard Embiid. I don't know how successful that will be either, but Tim's not big, but I mean, he's kind of a thicker dude. They play him at the 5 every once in a while.
Who did you say was going to guard him?
Coulibaly, possibly.
6'8". Okay. He's a little taller than I thought he was, to be honest. Okay. Gallinari is also one of their bigger guys, which is so. Could you imagine Gallinari trying to slow down Embiid? Just hilarious.
No chance. Nobody's going to be able to do it. That's why we love Embiid. But I thought Tim made a really great point when he said everyone expected this game to blow out when they played last week or whenever it was, and it was a close game, and Embiid went for 80 fantasy points. You're just playing, hoping that Washington can keep this close, even if it's just the front part of the fourth quarter and Philly pulls away by 30 late, but Embiid gets his 32 minutes. He's still going to smash in 32 minutes. So I'm playing him if he's active. There's no doubt about that. As far as the ownership stuff on Muscala, it's just because he's minimum priced, and this number is going to get refined for sure. When we first run ownership, it's very projections based and based on the script. Behind the scenes, they're constantly monitoring the industry and the sentiment around the industry, and that number definitely gets much more accurate as we approach lock here.
Keith, your favorite play if Embiid is out is who? Maxey turns into amazing. He's not cheap, but Maxey would probably have. I feel like I remember seeing projections for Maxey when Embiid's out, at a median projection, 53 points, DK points. It'll probably be somewhere around there, right?
Yeah, he's going to get a massive bump here, and it's still a great spot. It also limits the blowout risk a little bit as well if Embiid sits. So Maxey would jump to the top of my list, not the top of my list, but near the Luka range as far as superstars go. There's going to be a lot of stuff in play. I think Tobias will grade out as a very good mid-range play. Marcus Morris as a punt type play, I think could become in play. Depends on what we do with his minutes. Robert Covington, another guy who could get a solid minutes bump.
All right. Anything else here, Tim, you want to stress as far as Washington, Philly, or shall we move on?
I think we can move on.
Atlanta, the Hawks are hosting the Nuggets. 242 is the total. Denver is a 3-point favorite in Atlanta. DeAndre Hunter is out. Jalen Johnson, of course, is still out. Denver is fully healthy. Murray expected to play. Projections-wise, ownership-wise, when it comes to Atlanta and Denver, I don't think Jokic is not going to get played, right? 12, 13%. Capello on 12, 13%. Christian Brown is getting some ownership, but feels a little bit thin to me. I don't really see that, but okay. Maybe we can revisit that conversation, or we can have that conversation. His projection's not even good. It's just they're going stars and scrubs, essentially. And that's why he's getting some ownership. But yeah, Tim, we like to pick on Atlanta, sure, but Denver is fully healthy, and the pieces you want are really expensive. Jokic. Murray's got a pretty good FanDuel price. I'll give him that. He's 7.6 on DK, which is okay, too. The minutes might be down a tick or so. He's still coming back from his injuries. What are we projecting him for? Probably around 30, 31, 32? 32. Okay. Yeah, this game is Tim, I feel like I would like this game more than I actually do. It's just a matter of Jokic is hard to get to. There's a lot of cheap centers as well. I feel like when I'm talking about studs, I like Embiid more than Jokic. If Embiid was like Embiid, you tell me. How do you feel about Denver? Atlanta?
I mean, I just like Embiid's matchup a lot more. I mean, this is a great matchup for Jokic. Obviously, it's Jokic. You can play him anytime that you want. I'm just prioritizing Embiid. Like, if I was making 3 teams, all 3 would have Embiid over Jokic. So that's where I stand with that. Obviously, I don't want to tell anybody not to play Jokic if they want to play him. But this is just not a game. Like you said, the Nuggets are fully priced. And I think they're better center spots than Jokic, as weird as that is to say. So, yeah, I'm pretty much out on the Nuggets.
How about Atlanta?
I mean,
I'm kind of out there.
I'm kind of out on them too. I mean, this total is really high, so it feels strange to not want any pieces of this. But I mean, I think Capella is too expensive. He splits minutes anyway at the center position. Bogdan is projected to start now, but he's 6,800, which I feel is a little bit pricey. Trae Young 10-1. I guess you could play Trae, but I mean, they're just better studs. This slate is so big. You have to be very, very selective about your big spends.
Yeah, jump in here, Keith. It feels like the Atlanta guys are just priced up a little bit too much. I know we had Hunter projected in, so there's 34 minutes to go around. I'm trying to see who would be the biggest beneficiary, or it's just Bogdanovich is going to get a few more. Wesley Matthews might get a few more minutes. You're not playing him. I'm trying to where those minutes go. Who is the big Trent Forrest is going to get some. Who cares about Trent Forrest?
Yeah, I think Bay would get a slight bump. He's played 36 minutes before, so I think he'd get a couple bump. Maybe he becomes interesting. I don't really think so. Yeah, I think as far as minutes go, the big bump would go to Wesley Matthews. Garrison Matthews probably gets a couple. You're not going to want to play any of the guys just from Hunter being outside of possibly Sadiq Bey. I don't think. The other thing that would be interesting is they have started running Capella and Okongwu together a little bit. Maybe we see more of that without DeAndre Hunter. We do have a couple minutes of projected overlap in there right now, but I think they'd be willing to do it for 8 to 10 minutes. So potentially you could see Capella and Okongwu each get a slight bump as well if Hunter's out.
Do you like this game? 13 games. We should like this game. I feel like we should. It's just the pricing.
We should. Because it's Atlanta is one of those teams that plays at an extremely fast pace and they don't play any defense. But the problem is you would want to target Denver in that spot. And Denver has a bunch of guys returning from injury, so they're all mispriced. Jamal Murray, I think would be my obviously I love Jokic and you can play him in any spot. But with Murray coming back, Jokic is not as good of a play as he has been. Aaron Gordon missed a little bit of time, so Michael Porter's price is way too high. And Gordon is not necessarily getting full run right now. He can play 34 minutes in this spot, but we have him projected for 30 right now. You can certainly play a guy like Aaron Gordon, I think, but it's just they're not projecting very well because they're still working their way back up to full strength a little bit. And then at the same time, the guys who have been playing are overpriced because they were receiving bumps without guys like Murray and Gordon.
What do you make of 3.8K Christian Brown projected for 20 minutes, 17 fantasy points, projected for 11% ownership? That doesn't fully compute, except for he helps you get a second stud. Is basically that's what it is. It's the second stud thing, and it's all of the value being at the center position. So the shooting guard, small forward values are going to be pretty dicey. Is Brown in your pool right now?
He is not.
Yeah, I don't totally get it. By the way, the projections did update already for Atlanta. Somebody was on top of it. Matthews now to 18 minutes. Yeah. Well, that's Wesley Matthews. Garrison Matthews up to 14. Who cares? We did see, Bay got bumped up to 34, but still like not a good, dollar for dollar play. It's interesting that like nothing really pops. Forrest got a few extra minutes. Oh, you know what? They introduced AJ Griffin, who I think has not played. Has he played all season? He hasn't played in a while. They gave him 7 minutes.
Hate AJ Griffin right now. He has played a couple of games this season, but yeah, like it's been really hard for him to find his way onto the court this season.
Yeah. Toronto and New York, 220.5 is the total. New York is a 4-point favorite here. We don't know about Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson's questionable with an ankle, as is Quickly. He's got an ankle also. So there's a chance that stuff can really, really open up here for New York. Toronto is fully healthy with the exception of Otto Porter. Koloko's hurt too. That doesn't matter so much. Mitch Rob for New York is going to be out for several months. I believe it's an ankle. We got the report that Jericho Sims is going to draw the start. Let's see. I'm seeing this for the first time. Curious what our projection team did with the split for Sims and Hartenstein. Earlier in the day, I imagine they had Hartenstein drawing the start. I think a lot of people assumed that that's what would happen here, but we've seen it before. Well, Sims will start, but probably not going to close. Let's see. We're giving Hartenstein 25 minutes. We're giving Sims 20. All right. Keith, your thoughts as far as New York? And if Brunson and Quickly don't go, like the matchup's not great versus Toronto, but Randall's usage is going to be outrageous if that happens to be the case. Josh Hart would get a bump. Trying to think like who else. Like they have DiVincenzo and Grimes, but maybe we'll think about it when we get there, and maybe like Crunch Time handle that as far as Brunson. But what we know right now, Keith, what are your thoughts as far as the Knicks?
As currently projected, I want to play some Hartenstein. Like him, if he doesn't start, I'm happier because I think that brings the ownership down. I still think Hartenstein has upside for like 30 minutes in this spot. Like they're just not going to run Jericho Sims out there for a ton of minutes, I don't believe. So Hartenstein should still play significantly more minutes than Sims, and it wouldn't surprise me if Sims played under that 20 minutes and Hartenstein got an even bigger bump. So hopefully that ownership number is coming down on Hartenstein now with the change, the move to the bench, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But Hartenstein feels like a guy I want to be overweight on. Really not a ton of interest. Randall is certainly in play, not a priority for me as projected. If Brunson misses, then Randall definitely jumps onto my list. If Brunson misses and Quickly plays, I think Quickly is an outstanding play. Would probably be the best value on the slate as far as cheapies go. If they're both out, then it gets really dicey from there. I think you have to be looking at guys like DiVincenzo and maybe even definitely Hart, maybe even a guy like Grimes who doesn't do a ton when he's out there, and I don't think they would run him out there a ton either. So if Brunson and Quickly are out, it'd be Hart and DiVincenzo, but Quickly first.
Tim, New York?
Yeah, Hartenstein is power forward eligible on FanDuel, so I absolutely love him over there. I don't mind him in tournaments on DK either. We have him projected for, I think, 25 minutes. He was projected to start earlier on the day. I was hoping to get some value out of this game, but this whole Sim situation makes things a little bit difficult. So I'm kind of hoping that Brunson sits or even the Quickly sit, one of these guys to sit. That way I can get to DiVincenzo or Hart. I think you could still play Hart on FanDuel at least at 5,100. We haven't projected to play 28 minutes. So I think on FanDuel at least he's viable. But this is definitely one of those games where I was hoping to get to some cheap pieces so I could play double studs.
If you had to play one, Sims or Muscala?
Oh, I mean, that's a ridiculous question.
It's a ridiculous question.
Neither still.
Yeah. Sims is like, I just pulled up his usage in the season. It's 8.11%. Which is just brutal. 0.7 fantasy points per minute, which is just really bad. It's bad for a center, especially. We're only projecting 20 minutes out of him. I don't. Yeah, and the matchup's not great here against Toronto. We haven't talked about Toronto just yet. Tim, Nobody's really getting any ownership except for Anunoby's getting like 10% just because he just sort of like is fine, right? He's fine. But I see no reason to look at Toronto on this big slate. You tell me otherwise.
Yeah, the Knicks are too good defensively, and they play too slow for me to have any interest on a 13-game slate for anyone on Toronto.
Keith?
No notes.
Okay, let's move on. Chicago. Keith's Chicago Bulls in Milwaukee. 233 is the total. Alex Caruso is questionable. He's going to be questionable forever, I think. And he's a tough dude. He's playing through it, but still visiting the locker room every single game as well. He's got an ankle. He's questionable. Patrick Williams expected to go with his ankle. Zach LaVine, he's got a foot. He may never play again for the Bulls ever again. He's just waiting to get traded. We'll see. Stay tuned. Crowder is out for Milwaukee. Otherwise, they are fully healthy. Keith, finally, maybe your Bulls, are they going to lean in on, let's blow it up and start over? It's like 3 years too late, but maybe they do it soon with LaVine.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have to. Yeah. We don't have time for that.
we don't have time. I don't know why I'm derailing the show. We care about today and today only. Today, the Bulls are in Milwaukee. The role for Kobe White, by the way, is spectacular. This game stays close. I think he's an interesting tournament guy. And against Milwaukee, you can kind of fire away from the outside. There is some sticker shock to that, but the absence of LaVine, there's a lot more shots to go around. Start with your Bulls here. Do you think White is in play? Is in your pool? I'm going to guess he is in your pool.
He is. Like, you open it up and you see 7K Kobe White, and there's definitely sticker shock there. This is a guy we were paying like $4,500 for at the beginning of the season, but the role has been incredible since LaVine has been out, and he's played really well. Like, he stepped into the role and has kind of run with it. So even at that price, I think he's in play. Milwaukee has been pretty subpar on the defensive end here, so I am looking for one piece, especially if I'm playing Giannis. I want a piece of the Chicago team too. I think Vooch would be the next guy I look to. I don't trust DeRozan. He has not looked like the same guy, even as he was last year. I know he's been a little bit better here recently, but I still prefer Vooch in this spot, I think. But Kobe White over Vooch, I'm probably not going any deeper than that.
Naismith expected to play tonight for what it's worth for Indiana. There's just I'm not playing Caruso anymore. Like, there's no reason. Like, I know he can project to be like, okay, but he has no ceiling. Like,
he's
no
still
usage.
very hurt. The risk of him just not finishing the game is way too great to even consider him.
And there's no upside. Like, what's the best case scenario? You get like 6 stocks and a couple threes. Congratulations. He quote unquote made value. Like, he's projected for 26 minutes, but like, he can't play 28. I don't think. I just X him out. I don't know about you, Keith. I think you're just supposed to X out Caruso like going forward because
he did
the downside
play
is
30 minutes 2 games ago against Charlotte, but like there's just too much risk there, so I would X him out for sure.
Yeah. Oh, then it broke him though. They gotta stop doing that to him. Tim, talk about Chicago and Milwaukee.
Yeah, Chicago is just they're totally fully priced and not a great matchup as 11-point underdogs. So I really have no interest. I want to hear Keith's take on Giannis because he is going to be the lowest owned stud of them all. I'm not going to get there. I wouldn't get there in 3 max, but I certainly think that I would be over the field at 5.5%. Just because I think he's really going to get lost in the slate. So, I mean, people are going to play Embiid, Luka, Jokic, like Giannis is going to be the unknown, unwanted stud. And I think he makes for a fantastic GPP play.
I mean, I don't disagree with that at all. Like, the ownership is certainly enticing. The one thing I do have cautions about is how the pace of the Bulls, like they just play so slow. Hopefully Milwaukee can speed this up a little bit here. And I think it's a little bit better matchup for the Bulls than you do. Like, I'm kind of buying Milwaukee being a below average defensive team, just with the switch at point guard from Drew to Dame. Like, their defensive struggles are kind of real to me. So I do have a little bit of interest in the game stack. And if I'm paying up for Giannis, like, you need this game to stay close.
Yeah. I still think even if you think the Bucks are below average defensively, I still think the Bulls are fully priced, like every single one of them. So
fair.
I don't know. I mean, that's just my opinion. But yeah, I really like Giannis for GPPs.
I don't want to knock Giannis. I don't want to say anybody can't play Giannis, but like it's similar to Memphis where the Bulls are really good inside as far as points in the paint. They give up the second fewest points in the paint, but they also give up the most made 3-pointers. And, Giannis has the ability to make a three, but that's not his game. His game is like, crushing inside. Again, not saying you can't play Giannis, but I don't think this is like the amazing Giannis spot. He can
They also
overcome
don't
any
face
spot.
Giannis every game.
Yes. Yes.
He's better at scoring in the paint than most.
Correct. Yeah. But like in theory, I want to get at Chicago with, a bunch of 3-point shooters. Like I think it's more of a Dame game than it is a Giannis game. Just as far as like, how do you attack Chicago? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that is fair to say, but ownership is kind of going with that also.
Yes. Tim, would you give your thoughts as far as anything else in this game?
I don't really have much interest in this game in general, other than, a little bit of Giannis. That's it.
What is the ownership for Giannis? 5-6% is what we're looking at.
5.5%.
Yeah. And again, I did qualify, but before I was like, I'm not here to besmirch Giannis. He's spectacular. By all means, play Giannis. It sounded like you were saying it, Keith, without saying it. If you're playing Giannis, you're going to play a run back for Chicago?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I'm not sure if you flat out said that or you just kind of implied that, but that's
Kobe White being my favorite. Don't mind Vooch.
Okay. Anything else here, or shall we move on?
Moving on.
I think we can move on.
The Jazz, whatever is left of them, is taking on OKC. 234 is the total. OKC about 13, 14-point favorite here. Markkanen is still out for Utah. Walker Kessler is out. Two of their best bigs, and possibly John Collins. He's questionable. He had an illness. They just might get ravaged on the inside here. Lou Dort, torture chamber, is out for OKC. We were talking about this pre-show, Keith, and I know you're on the projections team. You have more firsthand knowledge on this than myself and Tim do. But projecting Utah minutes is really, really tricky. Like Yurtseven was one of those cheapies that people were looking at as possible, as an option right up there with Hartenstein, and I guess I was going to say Sims. I should not include Sims, but just a cheap center that's playable. Richards, there you go. And also Collins being doubtful, or I'm sorry, officially questionable, could kind of muck stuff up, and maybe it solidifies Yurtseven. Maybe it makes Kelly O a little better. But Utah is just hard to predict as far as their rotations from game to game. What are you anticipating tonight? A night where they likely lose and lose big.
Yeah, one of the teams that is definitely the most difficult to project in the entire league. And they change their rotations all the time. They do weird stuff with THT and with Sexton. They do weird stuff with Olynyk, like he was playing upper 20s minutes earlier in the season, and now he's down under 20. So are they willing to push Olynyk in this spot? I think that you could basically put whatever projections in there minutes wise for Utah that you want. So a guy like Yurtseven, who's good minutes, like per minute, is very intriguing. We have him for 22 right now. 26 wouldn't surprise me in this spot, and he becomes a really strong value at 26 minutes. It's really difficult to say. Like I don't know. They can run Fontecchio at the 5 a little bit, I suppose. But I just don't know if they're willing to push Olynyk or not in this spot. And so for that reason, I have a lot of interest in Yurtseven. If Collins misses, then I think Yurtseven becomes like lock button territory.
1.05 fantasy points per minute in the season for Yurtseven. What do you got? Anything you want to add there, Tim, as far as Utah? It's kind of an if-then situation, but yeah. You want to jump over to OKC, where
so
we're seeing
this is the
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is the game that I think is really going to blow out. I think the Thunder are actually absolutely going to crush the Jazz. So, like, somebody like Cason Wallace at 3,800, I think he's a really strong value. SGA, if you think this game stays close, is a really good play. I think you could even play some Chet Holmgren. But this is a game I don't anticipate staying very close. I was thinking about betting the 12.5 spread. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that or not. But
I did.
right
by the
now,
way.
you
You're
did.
worried
Did
about
you?
a mush. I did bet
okay.
OKC in this game.
Okay, so
I bet
I'm
him on some alt
definitely
lines,
not-
like minus 16, minus 17. Yeah.
All right, then I'm definitely not going to bet this game. But but yeah, no, I think the Thunder are really good plays. And is Isaiah Joe getting 17%? I think that's actually kind of interesting. I think he would get some blowout run too. So I do like some of these cheap pieces to the Thunder.
So it's interesting you say that as far as blowout run. And I want to bring Keith in this as well, because the Thunder have like 15 players. I feel like they have 5 more players than everybody else in the league. But yeah, like who does mop up here, Keith, as far as OKC? Because
they already play a ton of guys. I think you're going to need to click the hide unprojected button if you're going to look for the guys who are going to mop up like in a 40-point blowout here. Like Trey Mann is certainly a guy. Yeah, exactly. Like Trey Mann is like if I was playing the blowout angle, Trey Mann would be my top target, I think.
Okay.
Like Cason Wallace is a pretty major part of the rotation now. I'd be concerned that he gets taken off the floor. Aaron Wiggins is another guy they might not mind extending. It's really tough to predict.
What about Kenrich?
I don't think in a blowout. Like I just don't think he's a guy they would extend.
Okay. All right.
Maybe like, Jalen Williams, the big Jalen Williams might get a little bit more, but I mean, not a ton. He definitely isn't going to end up over 20.
And it's a 13-game slate. Like you really got to tell yourself a story to get to that. But like, so how about Isaiah Joe, Keith? Where Isaiah Joe, we're not expecting him to start. He comes in, and say it's the third quarter and they're up 25 or so. Like he might get hurt by a blowout because like he might be one of the first guys that, I mean, he's not going to be, he'll be out there longer than like SGA, I suppose, or Holmgren. I'm just trying to think the guys that are too good for the blowouts that are coming off the bench in the third quarter, they get hurt by big blowouts because they lose parts of the rotation sometimes. And just, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it, but I like Isaiah Joe in theory, but I don't know how deep does he get into a blowout that it's not certain it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think they'd be willing to run him pretty deep into a blowout. Like,
okay.
Like he's not going to mop up the last 5 minutes of the game, but I think he could play into the fourth quarter in a 25, 30-point game.
So how are you handling all this, Keith?
Well, we talked about the guard forward values just being non-existent. So depending on what news breaks, this is very important, but I would much rather lean into a guy like Isaiah Joe, I think, who has potential to get a little blowout run than a guy like Christian Braun, who we talked about in the Denver game. I definitely prefer Joe. I wish he was lower owned, but it's just kind of the nature of the slate. I'm struggling with the Cason Wallace thing.
That's what I was just going to ask you. Wallace versus Joe. Like, what do you think between those two?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough call. Like Cason Wallace has kind of taken over the Josh Giddey role, and it seems like he's a legitimate member of their preferred rotation at this point. I don't know. I don't know that necessarily means they wouldn't extend him in a blowout, but I'd just be concerned about him like firmly being in the rotation at this point, where guys like Aaron Wiggins and Trey Mann go in and out of the rotation. I don't think they have any problem running those guys in a blowout.
I would take Joe over Wallace if that's the question. I think Joe's a better fantasy point with a guy, 0.87 versus 0.66. Wallace is a defensive guy, and Isaiah Joe is a three-point shooter. And you tend to get more points shooting threes than you do playing defense. Usage-wise, Wallace 12.03% in the season. Joe, not a huge usage, 17%, but most of his shots are going to come from three. Obviously, if he's not making his threes, go to bed. It's not going to happen. But I think he's got a bigger upside. Do you agree with that, Keith, or it's just sort of kind of a coin toss for you, or what?
Yeah, I do agree with that. Joe's definitely the better per-minute producer and has far more upside, I would say.
But do we talk about SGA? Like he's great, but like, are they going to smash too much? And that's a problem because he's the only one he stars. And again, he's 10-6. And like 10-6 is a pretty good price actually, but you just can't make a lineup of all these good priced studs. It's not how it works. Where is he priority wise for you, Tim? And if you just think the game's going to blow out and, sure, he's going to do some damage in three quarters, but he's going to be halted to some degree. Yeah.
If I'm looking at players 10K or above, he probably ranks 5th or 6th, which is pretty amazing given the spot that he's in.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's not a priority for me by any means.
Anything else there, Keith? And as far as your SGA thoughts, do you agree with
He'd
that?
be higher than that for me. I think there's a little bit better chance of this game staying close than Tim does. He would probably be 4th for me.
Jalen Brunson in, Kyle Lowry in. So some potential value goes by the wayside. Dallas, the Mavericks take on Memphis. 227 is a total. The Mavericks are 2-point favorites here in Memphis. We have, let me find my injury report. My apologies. All right. Yeah, Grant Williams is out. Kyrie Irving is out. Kleber is still out. Josh Green is still out. Dallas is super thin, but they do have Luka Doncic, who does everything. Memphis does have LaRavia questionable now with the eye. Otherwise, it's the same old deal. Smart, Kennard, Clark, Adams. They're not playing basketball this evening. This might be one of the reasons why Tim has SGA at 5 or 6, because you guys both kind of spoke on it earlier. Luka versus the world, man. He's Scott Pilgrim because he's got no teammates tonight, right? But he's going to take on Memphis all by himself and put that triple-double on layaway. And he's expensive, sure, but he justifies it most every time. What do you got, Tim, here as far as the Mavs? Luka and, the auxiliary pieces are kind of sort of somewhat interesting as well. Dante Exum is starting into a decent little player, it seems like. Seth Curry, if you want to get some threes, maybe, sure, possibly. What do you got?
Yeah, Luka's my favorite play on the entire slate. He's the guy I'm prioritizing on both DK and FanDuel. Not much else needs to be really said about that. Seth Curry is a tough choice. I'm probably going to not play him because he's going to be pretty popular, but I understand if people need the value. Exum's starting to get kind of expensive, but I think he's a really good tournament play. Hardaway is actually my favorite secondary piece of Dallas, just because he can get very, very hot from 3 points, and I think he has a ceiling in this matchup.
We do have Curry at 16% currently, 4.1K, about a 20-point projection. Desmond Bane on the other side with all his revenge versus Dallas for not drafting him. He crushed him last time. He tends to get up for games against Dallas if you buy into such narratives. He's not cheap, but he is essentially the Memphis offense, him and Triple J. Keith, jump in here. Feel free to knock out both sides of this game.
Yeah, right with Tim on Luka. Favorite play on the slate. A lot of that is positionally based with the value being at center. I don't mind Dallas value. Like Seth Curry, I think is okay. Probably not going to light the world on fire, but should give you 20, 22 points or something like that. Has potential to get even a little bit more run than projected. Has a chance he could get you a little bit less, but like without Kyrie, I think Curry's locked in for like 25 minutes minimum. I like the Exum play. The price tag is getting a little bit uncomfortable, but I mean, he's looked really good. So he's certainly in play. Kyrie played in that last game when he went off, right? I believe maybe I'm trying to remember the Portland game. Like part of that was obviously blowout and he wasn't playing with them on the floor, but was Kyrie in that game?
He played 13 minutes.
Okay, so Kyrie left early. That's what it was. I don't think 33 minutes is in the cards. Like 29 is where we have him projected. That makes sense. I love the Hardaway call. I think he could go nuts off the bench in shortened minutes. So totally with Tim on Hardaway. I have a lot of interest in the Dallas side here.
Okay. Tim, anything else? We got crunch time coming on in about 10, 15 minutes or so. That's why I wanted to kind of speed things up a little bit. Anything else to add here, Tim?
No, but I do love your Desmond Bane call. I love Dallas is horrible on defense. So I think getting to a Grizzly player is a really good idea. And Bane is a really, really sharp play, I think.
Minnesota, New Orleans, 222.5 is the total. The Pels are 4-point favorites versus the T-Wolves. Anthony Edwards officially questionable. Jaden McDaniels also questionable. New Orleans is fully healthy with the exception of Larry Nance. I'll let Tim start this off. Minnesota, New Orleans. I don't think this game is all that interesting unless Edwards doesn't play. And then I guess we have some stuff on Minnesota.
I think this is the worst game on the slate, except for maybe the Cleveland game. So I have no interest in this game at all on either side. really. This game is pretty bad for DFS.
Keith?
I completely agree. I think this is a speed us up game.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. That's what we'll do. San Antonio takes on the Rockets. 223 is the total. Houston, they are 10-point favorites versus the Spurs. Spurs pretty terrible this season. As far as injuries, Bassey is out for San Antonio. Their backup center, Dylan Brooks, expected to play with an illness. Tari Eason's got a leg, so he's questionable. Wembanyama we saw jump to center last game, and I think he grabbed 20 boards in that game, if I'm not mistaken. Overall, the Spurs are horrible. They're bad defensively. Şengün is spectacular. We're talking about all these cheap centers. Şengün ain't cheap, Keith, but he's really freaking good. Maybe spend up to be a little different at center. I think he's an interesting piece. It's not going to be terribly owned. What do you got for San Antonio and Houston, Keith?
Yeah, tons of interest in this game, mainly on the Houston side. Like, Houston's actually been pretty solid on defense this season. Love the Şengün call. A little worried about the matchup with Wemby on the other side there. Like, the length could bother him a little bit. Fred VanVleet is the guy I like just as much as Şengün in the spot. I want a piece of this game environment. The dude plays a ton of minutes. He's only 8,300. I think he has crazy upside in this spot. I'm shocked to see him only 11.5% owned. I thought he would be a little bit more popular than that on this slate at this price, but that works for me. Give me some VanVleet. Jabari Smith, he's popping in projections a little bit. I don't know if I feel that great about him with Eason, and if Eason misses, then completely wipe that out. Then load up Jabari Smith. But I'm just worried you could lose a little run to Eason or even Jayshawn Tate. He does project very well though at that price.
Does that projection look a little hot to you? I saw him. I haven't been able to ask the questions on behalf of the chat, but I see them they're talking about earlier. Jabari's projection currently is almost 36 DK points. Is Amen Thompson expected to play tonight for Houston? That's what Puppet Master saying. I know in the G League he had a triple-double the other day. I'm really curious how he's going to get minutes in this team or who he takes them from. But is that something we're expecting, Thompson to play tonight? Because that was not on my radar. I had
not seen that. That would give me a slight pause on Fred VanVleet playing 40 minutes again. I don't think
he's not being projected, but I don't know.
Thompson's not somebody who I'm playing by any means. Like, I think he would get to 12 minutes or something like that, but he could prevent VanVleet from playing 38.
What do you got, Tim?
Yeah, I definitely want exposure to Houston in some capacity. I'm just not sure how yet. I think my favorite would be Şengün, but I've already recommended to 30 centers. So it'd probably have to be FEV or Smith. So, yeah, great spot for them, for sure.
Danielle Lerner, sports, let's see, for Houston Chronicle, The Athletic as well. She is saying that looks like he's getting some shots up here, likely to play for the Rockets tonight for the first time since November 1st. He's warming up currently. I don't know how much, obviously, it's worth noting. Yeah, don't play him, right?
Right.
I don't think But he's gonna,
it will be his projection probably.
Yeah, he'll take some minutes from somebody. So the ceilings are slight hits for other players. Tim, did you give anything as far as the Spurs, or it's kind of a not wait for you?
It would just be Wemby and that's it, but he's tough to get to, I think. And this is not a good matchup at all.
Sean says, why would this show not start at 2 p.m. considering the size of the slate? Yeah, we could be on for 5 hours. I suppose that's possible. But we'll have to consider it next time there's a 14-game slate. And they run it back with crunch time coming on in about 5 minutes or so. Whatever we don't cover, whatever questions you want to answer, they're happy to knock it out. It's not Roth today, right? I think it's TJ and Taylor. It is the Taylors. All right, we have, I think, 2 more games. Yes. Brooklyn, Sacramento, 236 is the total. Sacramento is a 5-point favorite versus the Nets. Kind of a potential big injury, maybe? I don't know. I'm curious to get Keith's thoughts when it comes to Malik Monk. Malik Monk is questionable. It's an illness. Who's to say? DSJ is out for Brooklyn, as is Lonnie Walker. Of course, Ben Simmons still out. How much does that matter with Monk for Sacramento? He's just kind of their sixth man off the bench. Sometimes he closes. I guess it would solidify Herter, solidify Barnes maybe.
I would say Keegan Murray and Kevin Huerter both get like 2-minute bumps probably, and then a guy like maybe you see Davion Mitchell enter the conversation there. Or Duarte. Is Duarte healthy? If Duarte's healthy, I think he's the guy who could step in for some minutes for Monk. I don't think it would be exciting.
Duarte.
No,
Yeah.
no, I don't think it matters for anybody who's not projected right now. It would matter slightly for Huerter and Keegan Murray, I think.
Your thoughts as far as this game?
Difficult matchup here, I think, for the Kings. And then like the Brooklyn side, Michael Bridges has a decent ceiling. You can certainly play him. The Kings play fast. So pace up spot for Brooklyn. Like I would say Claxton on a different slate, but no chance I'm getting there on this slate. Cam Thomas is fully priced and we're not sure where the minutes are going to land for him. So really just Bridges on the Brooklyn side. I don't have a ton of interest in the Kings. If Monk sits, then I think you could take looks at Huerter and Murray in the mid-range, but I don't think I'm going up to Fox or Sabonis today.
That's pretty much where I'm at. That's where the field's at too. Nobody in this game getting more than 5% ownership currently. If you hated the Magic before, you're probably hating me even less now because Suggs officially in. So like not even any like potential value there with Suggs being out.
We're getting nothing on the slate. Nothing.
No. Tim, did I ask you about Brooklyn, Sacramento? Like the field's up.
I have no interest. I have no interest in Sacramento. I have a little bit of interest in Bridges and Cameron Johnson, but that would be about it for me.
Last game, 10:30, Portland Clippers, 221. Portland is a 13-point dog. They do have some injuries up in the air as well. We don't know about Brogdon or Ayton. We know Grant is still out with his concussion. The Clippers are fully healthy unless you count Plumlee. This feels like a smashing, but we'll see. Stay tuned. Tim, what do you got when it comes to Portland and LA? And even if like Ayton and Brogdon are ruled out, like Reith, do we like Reith more than we like the other cheap centers? Probably not.
No.
Yeah.
No chance.
So like, what do we like, if anything?
I don't think really anybody from the Trailblazer side. If I was building out a bunch of teams, I would take shots on guys like Harden, George, and Leonard, but that would be about it for me.
Keith, get me excited about somebody in this game, or maybe not. I don't have to be excited.
No interest if Brogdon and Ayton play. If they do not play, Anthony Simons might have a 40% usage rate. So I think you need to play some Anthony Simons in tournaments if both of those guys sit. That's really all I got there. And then the Clipper side, it's a little bit of Leonard, George, and Harden. But I wouldn't play any of them together. So max one of those three guys for me, but all three in play.
Simons has gone from what he was 6'7", 5'5", 6'8". Now he's 7'8", and he's basically justified it along the way. And like, he's going to go out there and chuck. He's going to take all the shots in the world. I've not seen his current usage on the season, but it's probably like 35% or so. You said 40? Is that?
No, I said he could have a 40%. It's right around 30 for the season, I believe.
Okay. Yeah.
31, I think, if I remember from last night.
We do have crunch time coming in. You got the Taylors coming in just a second. Before they jump on board, let's give them the player that's going to break the slate. Keith, I'll let you start first. Feel free to be as ambitious as you want to be. It's a lot.
No, I'm just kidding.
That was me basically saying, Tim, don't take Luka. Come on, Tim. Let's be ambitious. That's kind of what I was saying there because I know he was going to do that. But what do you got for me?
Yeah, I will go Fred VanVleet. I am a little bit concerned about this Amon Thompson news, but Fred VanVleet is my guy.
Tim, see it, raise it.
Well, I'm predicting the Pistons are going to win the game, and Cade Cunningham goes for 55 DK. How about that?
And what you have a nice little game stack there. Is that not the plan for you?
I think I'm going to try to, yeah.
Are you playing Beef Stew? Or you're playing Asar? Or playing both?
I'm playing Beef Stew. I'm playing Beef Stew, definitely. And then I'm thinking about Miles Turner also.
Yeah, 3 Pistons might be too many Pistons. I don't know. 2 Pistons might be too many Pistons for all we know. But I like the little game stack there.
Chris Middleton ruled out.
Does that help
that
us?
That makes Giannis more interesting, I think.
But like anybody cheap, Tari Eason is in, by the way. Would anybody for Milwaukee, would Portis benefit from that? Revenge game by Portis? He's kind of cheap, 5'2". Maybe he's interesting.
No, Beauchamp's the guy that's going to get more minutes, and that's not interesting to me.
I talked about it earlier. The Bulls give up all those threes. Malik Beasley is going to hit 5 threes tonight. Is that useful in DFS? I don't know. He's got to hit like 9, I think, to get there because he doesn't do a heck of a lot else. We got the Taylors. We got Taylor Smith. We got Taylor J. Zwayrch. What's up, TJ?
Doing well. Ready to dive into a fun night of sports. I'm playing 150 on NBA, 150 on NFL, 3 for NHL, 3 for each of the showdown NFL. So we got a fun slate ahead of us.
Look at you. Yeah, Tim taught you how to play hockey, right?
I think that's a little bit of a gross oversimplification, but I would definitely say on a day-to-day basis.
Give me all the credit, okay?
Did he get like a 20% kickback on your big winnings or for coaching services?
I've always known how to play DFS hockey, but on a day-to-day basis, I am definitely improved because of Tim and Moneyball and the NHL Discord.
Tim, if he ever asks you again in the future, just be like, look, you besmirched me. You didn't appreciate my advice. Just like
I'm going to tell him forget it. Yeah.
I don't think I've asked anything yet other than like, hey, these are the lines I'm playing. What do you think?
That's true.
Tim, are you sticking around here for crunch time? Is that what's happening?
I am. Double duty.
Look at you. You're a trooper. TJ, you're hosting? Yes.
Yes, I am Kevin Roth this evening.
All right.
I'm Kevin Roth and Tim is Will.
That works.
Got all that?
Right. I'm going to step aside with me and Keith are going to leave. How about that? The 5 of us, it's going to get knocked down to just 2. Tim can run back all his thoughts. We do appreciate you all watching here. Hit the like button. Do subscribe. Do turn on notifications. Do all those things. Do stick around all the way up the lock with Crunch Time because you got TJ, you got Taylor, and you have Tim. With that, TJ, take it away.
We got the weekend NBA Crunch Time squad pop in here. And speaking of gross oversimplifications, it's actually I'm Kevin Roth, Tim is Taylor, and Taylor is Will. Because Taylor was going to be handling cash games before. Now I'm pivoting him to tournaments. And Tim, single entry cash game extraordinaire, can handle cash since he was just on double duty talking some tournaments for GrindersLive. And we can get into FanDuel sponsored Crunch Time. We'll obviously start talking cash games and tournaments on FanDuel. Then we'll pivot to DraftKings. Then we'll take QQs from the Discord live stream chat, then the RotoGrinders YouTube chat. So make sure you're hitting the like button, smash, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all those good things. And we will start with FanDuel. Because Crunch Time is presented by FanDuel. Bet $5 in any money line. Get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Then you probably shouldn't be watching this show, and you should call 1-800-GAMBLER. First things first, Taylor, why don't you give me a little bit of a slate overview? We'll give Tim a little bit of a chance to relax and catch his breath.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Obviously, 13 games. No shortage of injury news. We're waiting on things like Joel Embiid. Anthony Edwards also questionable. Ayton, Brogdon, John Collins. We've gotten a few guys ruled in. Brunson is in. Kyle Lowry's in. Jalen Suggs is in. Evan Mobley ruled out. Kyrie ruled out. Gafford ruled out. Lowry Markkanen, of course. Jalen Duren, Jeremy Grant, Mitchell Robinson, and Walker Kessler. Lou Dort also out. So I think moral of the story, probably a lot of tonight, especially DK, obviously, where you can play more than one. But it's madness, and there's a decent chance that things will change over the next 37 or so minutes. So might be a night where you have to babysit your lineups through lock and make swaps and all sorts of stuff. So plenty to follow. John Collins ruled out.
John Collins ruled out. So Yurtseven is now lock button, I think.
Well,
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yurtseven is now just absolutely fantastic. I think Olenek becomes a lot more interesting. I might make a rule in my lineup set that I want to play at least one of Olenek or Yurtseven in every lineup, and I think it also makes Simone Fontecchio in play as well. Outside of the center position, we've kind of been lacking on value for this slate. You guys were just talking about that quite a bit, Tim, on the last show. I just saw an interesting note, and he's 3-7 on DraftKings. Before we dive into the cash game talk, what do you guys think about Amen Thompson today? Can you play Amen Thompson for the Rockets in a great matchup against the Spurs? Potentially some blowout run. They say he's not on a minutes limit and he's available for the first time since November. Highly touted rookie that was obviously dealing with a lot of injuries at the beginning of the season. Apparently now back dealing and without a minutes limit. 3,700. Tim, can you take a shot on Amen Thompson? Can I take a shot on Amen Thompson if I'm playing?
You can. I think if you're playing multiple lineups, definitely not in cash games though. But I mean, yeah. I think if you're making like 20 teams, you could put them in like 1 or 2. I think I wouldn't go more than that.
Yeah, I think one is probably the most you can do, right?
Yeah,
He's not even in lineup HQ. If I click hide unprojected, he still doesn't show up. Oh, there he is.
I think it's a question of whose minutes is he going to take. Like Aaron Holiday maybe, but I think Aaron Holiday has been playing pretty well. It's just tough to see.
I think
even without
really
a limit, like how much is he going to play?
I think you really got to see a blowout too.
Yeah.
I'm going to put him in one or two of my 150 lineups, but that's already too much time spent talking about that. Let's start going through our sponsor FanDuel, talking about cash games. Noto has Doncic, Bane, and Jimmy Butler tagged as his core plays. Tim, let's start with the point guard position. Who are you liking today for cash games?
I really like Jamal Murray on FanDuel at 7,400, and I also really like FVV. But yeah, Luka would definitely be a core piece for me. I'm not sure if I would core Bane and Butler in cash, but they're certainly viable. Doncic is my favorite play in the entire slate. I think FEV would be my next favorite point guard, followed by Jamal Murray. I think that's about it. There's nobody really cheap that I want to go down to. So I think you either have to be in that 7K range or go all the way up to Luka.
I like it. Let's go to the shooting guard position.
Yeah, shooting guard is a place where I think you can save a little bit of money, whether it be a guy like Kevin Huerter, somebody like, where did he go? I think Cason Wallace is interesting. I think Isaiah Joe is interesting also. Jalen Williams is 6,900. I think you could play him in cash games. Jalen Green again. So like this is a position that I think you can save a little bit of money at.
And then the small forward position. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of QQs on this slate, so I'm going to try and just keep us going here, no nonsense all the way through. So that's because it's a 13-game slate, and we're potentially still going to have more news to break down. We'll be able to get to it with all good time.
Yeah, so we have to kind of see how this Utah usage shakes out. I'd like to see what happens with like Fontecchio and some of the other Jazz players, because likely there's going to be some guys that are popping for pretty cheap. So I don't know how like THT is going to pop or somebody like that with no Collins. So one of those guys might end up being very, very viable in cash. Again, Kevin Huerter is cash game viable. I think Kyle Kuzma even is cash game viable. Bojan for Detroit in a great game environment is definitely cash game viable. So I think so. I'm waiting to see what Utah shakes out because I think they'll be interesting for cash and tournaments.
I just did a refresh here of my projections to see if they've changed at all. No, I don't think they've updated for John Collins yet. Power forward position.
Yeah, so power forward Isaiah Stewart's definitely my favorite, followed by Jabari Smith. I think that you could play Jared Allen at 6,800. Isaiah Hartenstein, I think, is possibly still in the cash game conversation. He's not projected to start anymore, which kind of stinks, but I think he's still a strong play. But this is definitely a position that you can save money at. And then center is for cash is pretty easy, I think. I think it's Nick Richards. If you don't want to do that, I think you play Miles Turner. And I think you could potentially pay all the way up for Embiid if you really, really wanted to. But he's super expensive. So he might just be for GPPs only.
All right. Tournaments. Let's start actually at the center position.
I'm sorry. You're at 7 is now the
you're at 7, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're at 7 is now your FanDuel cash game center.
There we go. Let's plug him in there as well. Taylor, let's do this one in reverse. Start me at the center position, and then let's go back to guard.
Yeah, so I think the obvious, with most people paying down at center, the obvious thing to do in tournaments is to just pay up and totally flip the build. The only issue is the value at center looks so much better than everywhere else. So I do think it's viable in tournaments to play Nick Richards, Omer Yurtseven. Mike Muscala is a guy that kind of pops in projections. Daniel Gafford's out for Washington. They're playing Philly, so it's a potentially brutal spot if Embiid's playing, but he's cheap. He's historically a good per minute guy. I don't mind Muscala for 38 on FanDuel as a punt center, but if you're going expensive, Embiid, assuming he plays, I mean, it's the Wizards. We just saw him smash them like a week ago. He's been dominant all season. I think he's going to get under-owned naturally just because you can only play one center on FanDuel. Same argument for Jokic against Atlanta, another great matchup for them there. Miles Turner stands out against a shorthanded Pistons front court. And Şengün, I think, is a smash. He's always kind of underpriced for what he brings to the table at 87 on FanDuel. I just think he could bully through Wembanyama in this game. So more than happy to pay up for him in tournaments.
Whole bunch of news is piling in, starting lineups and available to plays, et cetera, et cetera. The two things that I found very notable is we do have a confirmed to start Mike Muscala. He will be starting for the Wizards. And then we also have a starting lineup for Detroit: Cunningham, Hayes, Thompson, Bogdanovic, and Stewart. The biggest thing that stands out there is Ausar Thompson is back in the starting lineup, and I think he makes for a phenomenal GPP play.
Is he? Oh man, he's such a good tournament play. He was my favorite. Yeah.
I'm going to bump him way up and try and get an absolute ton of him because I think that could potentially slip a little bit under the radar. The other thing is Tim Hardaway Jr. Got downgraded to questionable, so that could potentially open up more value in Dallas. Guys like Seth Curry, maybe even Jaden Hardy. And Embiid will play. He is starting and playing today for the 76ers. With all of that being said, how does that potentially impact things for you in cash game? Tim, do you think Ausar Thompson is potentially cash game viable now? He's 5,400 on FanDuel and very cheap on DraftKings as well. I believe 5,600.
Yeah, I think he is cash game viable just because I love that game environment. But I also, with this Hardaway news, Curry becomes a smash cash game play. So I don't know if I want to fill up my shooting guard spot necessarily. So that's my only hesitation.
I think that makes sense. Let's go power forward here for tournaments, Taylor.
Power forward, with the news we just got about John Collins, I think Kelly Olynyk's a really strong play, even off the bench. I think we have him at 24 minutes now, which is not a ton, but another good per minute guy. He's 5K on FanDuel. You're definitely playing him at power forward if you're playing him over here because center's stacked. Jared Allen is decent with no Mobley. I like that he's power forward eligible on FanDuel as well. 68's a little steep, and I'm not a huge fan of this game overall, but still a decent value there. Isaiah Stewart playing center for the Pistons now with Duran out and Bagley out. Great matchup against Indiana. That's like, the most glorious matchup we've been hitting all season long. Pistons are gross, but interested in that big time. I think Asar Thompson is small forward shooting guard on FanDuel, so
Yeah.
That's pretty helpful over there. Kyle Kuzma's fine for Washington. Not dying to play a ton of Wizards, unfortunately, except for maybe Muscala, but decent salary. He's been good all season for them. Siakam, another game that doesn't look that great on paper, especially on the Toronto side, but should be almost completely unowned on FanDuel. I think we have him sub 5% for 8K flat. And in the late game, I think Kawhi Leonard's in play. Portland's terrible. He's getting a little more expensive, but he's also been playing much better lately, I guess, kind of getting used to life with James Harden. So happy to play him for 88. And Jimmy Butler, again, Miami shorthanded, 8,500, no Bam, no hero. Charlotte's another awesome matchup. So that's kind of my power forward pool at the moment.
And small forward.
Small forward, Butler here, Kuzma. Asar Thompson talked about great now. Should see more solidified minutes. The starter, hopefully. Miles Bridges is okay as a spend. Simone Fontecchio is a guy that looks a lot better now with no Collins and the rest of that front court super shorthanded. I think he's one of the better salary relief plays at a non-center position, which is a little gross for a 13-gamer, but it's going to be hard for them not to give him 30-plus minutes in this spot. We got the Brunson news, so RJ Barrett's not as appealing as he otherwise may have been. Bojan Bogdanovic is a decent price for 62. Great matchup against Indiana. And Jaime Jaquez, again, another Miami guy against Charlotte, I think is on the radar, but not someone I'm dying to play either.
Shooting guard.
Jaden Ivey, obviously I wish he would have been starting, so he's not as appealing as he otherwise would have been. Ben Matherin's fine off the bench. This position's pretty gross overall. I think you can pay up for Bane on the other side of the Dallas game as a good run back with all the value we'll have over there. Cade Cunningham I'm fine with, another Piston. It's kind of alarming how many Pistons I'm getting to here, but they have an implied team total of around, 120 points or so. So I think it's viable even if they're terrible.
Anthony Edwards ruled out.
Oh boy.
That's not huge, I don't think.
No, that game's pretty great.
Yeah, but he is out. So
and everybody's been priced up there. And so like the Troy Browns, Nikhil Alexander Walkers, I don't really know how much I need them, but I do think that actually makes Towns a very great tournament play.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I don't think I'll get to anybody else
the
though.
Guy
like
want.
$5,900 Alexander Walker, 5K Kyle Anderson, 5-1
61 for Conley. That's just too much for Conley, I think. Towns would be the guy for 80 on fan for sure. Another guy you're probably playing at power forward though.
Yeah. And that's a tournament tidbit today. Like I'm playing 150 lineups, but I think this is something you should do if you're playing anywhere between 1 or 150 today. We have so much great center value and even center pay up options. Anybody that has power forward eligibility, you are playing there. You make that rule in lineup HQ. Go to power forward here and you see like, Victor Wembanyama has power forward center eligibility. You switch it to just power forward if you're using the optimizer at all. You do not use them anywhere but there. You don't use them at center if they can be eligible anywhere else.
Yeah, I think that pretty much does it. Kevin Huerter is a guy that should be on your radar, especially if Monk is out, but otherwise it's a pretty nasty position. Point guard, Fred VanVleet, fine. I don't think Ben Thompson hurts his minutes too much. I would still expect him to play 35 to 40 if the game is close. So great play in tournaments, even with ownership. Cade Cunningham, fine again over here. Al Murray, cheap. Atlanta's a great matchup. Should be fairly popular, but it is a huge slate. I think people will pay up for Luka. I think Halliburton is a really good tournament play too, especially if you're piling up the Pistons. You don't really need me to sell you on Halliburton. Jeremy Sohan is okay. He got back into the starting lineup in the last game. Jalen Green on the last piece. He's another guy you probably play at shooting guard instead of point guard. And Killian Hayes, maybe, but generally I don't want to Killian Hayes ever. So I think I would probably not actually include him. I'd rather play Sohan if I'm shopping for like a cheap mid-range point guard. And let's see, Shea, decent price, but I prefer Halliburton. I think that pretty much sums it up.
Tons and tons of news piling in like crazy. We are breaking it all down for you, so make sure you smash that like button for us. It really is huge. Oh, I didn't realize I had that up the whole time. There you go. Oh no, that was Tim. That was Steve. I forgot I'm not producing at the same time. That's how chaotic this is I still thought I was I just don't even know where I am because there's so much going on. So make sure you smash that like button for us. Let's transition over to DraftKings, starting with the cash games. We got 20 minutes to lock, still potentially more news that'll pile in, and we want to save lots of time for QQs. We're going to get there. Just absolutely crushing it. Make sure you hit the like button. Starting at the point guard position, Tim, who do you like in cash games? Apologies, I am running 150 lineups on DraftKings today, and so there's guys X'd out of my pool. There's some projections adjusted. You can see my exposures here. Nothing we can do about that. We're just rolling with it. Who do you like at point guard, Tim?
Yeah, so Luka is my priority in cash. If you can't afford him, I think Halliburton is just fine. FEV is certainly viable in cash games also. Cade Cunningham, I think, is viable in cash even. But so Luka is definitely my favorite point guard. Shooting guard, I think. I love the Desmond Bane projection, but we have to save money somewhere. So, I'm going down to Case and Wallace, I think, and also Seth Curry, because if we lose Hardaway, then Seth Curry is going to be a really, really strong cash game play. So I'm going to be saving at shooting guard. At small forward, I think it's Bogdanovich for the Pistons, possibly Jalen Williams for the Thunder. I don't know. So Bane, I guess, is definitely viable. Again, I just don't think I can personally get up to him. So I think I'm going to be leaving it with Bojan and Jalen Williams. Power forward. Giannis is obviously projected the best, but I'm prioritizing Luka. So Isaiah Stewart is definitely going to be my cash game team. I think he's an absolute smash play today. Same thing with Bojan Bogdanovic. You can play him at power forward. You play both of them, small forward and power forward. And then center, I think it's pretty easy. I'm going to try to go double center in cash. So it's going to be Nick Richards and Yurtseven. Those are my two cash game centers.
And that's something I think you're doing on DraftKings as well for cash and tournaments. I made a rule that no matter how many, in all 150 lineups, I want to play a center at the flex in all 150 of them.
How much Muscala do you have, TJ?
Let's see. I have 10%.
Okay. Yeah. I don't really like it.
81% Yurtseven, 38% Nick Richards, 19% Kelly Olynyk, 12% Orlando Robinson, 10% Muscala, 9% Embiid, 7 Hartenstein, 6 Holmgren, 6 Şengün, 4 Jokic, 3 Clint Capella, 2 Miles Turner, 1 Ivica Zubac.
I was going to say, if you didn't have any Miles Turner, I would have been very disappointed.
Yeah, he's just picking up a decent amount of projected ownership, and I wanted to go with the fade on that one. I feel like I actually have some TJ McConnell in my pool because I feel like this one's going to turn into a blowout either way. Either the Pacers show up and they blow out the Pistons, or the Pacers just don't show up at all, and the Pistons get their first win in a long time in blowout fashion. Taylor, center position, who are you liking for tournaments?
Yeah, it's mostly the same guys, of course. I do think Muscala's good in tournaments. He's 3K flat. We don't really get that very often. A lot of ways that can fail, of course, and there is a ton of opportunity cost at this position. So not endorsing going all in on Muscala by any means, but I will probably be over the field on him still. Embiid, still gettable, of course, now that we know he's playing for sure. Great matchup. Pretty good price on him, too, relative to where he normally is. Don't mind that at all. Nick Richards, great in tournaments. A guy I ignored on FanDuel that I think is actually a decent play over there in tournaments now is Hartenstein. With the uncertainty with regard to whether he'll start, even off the bench, I still think he's a good play. I don't think he'll be nearly as popular as it looked like he would be earlier. And you can play him on FanDuel over there. A lot tougher to get to on DK at center only, especially if he comes off the bench. Jericho Sims, maybe, if he starts, but we have him projected to start and only at 20 minutes still. So not something I love. I'd rather play Muscala if I'm going all the way down at center. Let's see. Power forward. Sims you can play there, actually. So that's kind of intriguing if he starts maybe, but still quite risky. He can still pay off technically, but not sure he can really win you a slate necessarily unless he just goes completely insane with 13 games out there. Another guy in tournaments that looks good is Miles Bridges, 7,700. Not a great matchup, but minutes are there. More usage with LaMelo out for them, and should see plenty of minutes up front with Mark Williams out as well. Isaiah Stewart, I love that call, especially in tournaments now that we know he's starting at center for them. Gallinari, maybe not really on my radar. The minutes cap really hurts him considerably off the bench. And Jalen Williams looks pretty good with no Dort. He does a little bit of everything out there. Really good tournament play, I think, as well. At small forward, this we can Isaiah Joe. Another guy that may or may not start, but I think the minute should be decent for him. He's around a fantasy point per minute with Lou Dort off the floor. And saying in the last show they think he might be blowout proof, and I agree with that, especially if he comes off the bench. Don't mind that at all, even if he's going to be quite popular. Bojan Bogdanovic is okay. Desmond Bane, I like. He's probably the top spend here. Keep an eye on the Tim Hardaway thing. He's a great play if he plays, but apparently he's got a back injury that caused him to be downgraded. So that's not ideal this close to tip. It kind of seems like he's trending maybe to be out. If that's the case, I think Derek Jones was already an okay value. He's over 5K, which is generally too much for Derek Jones, but he did play 39 minutes in the last game. They are getting really thin, so he may have to do that again. Could top 40 potentially for the Mavs. I think he's a good tournament play as well. Moving over to guard Josh Giddey. There's no telling what his minutes will be like. We still have him at 25, even without Dort. But well over fantasy per minute. The salaries come down. Great matchup against Utah. I like him quite a bit as a tournament play at either guard spot. Jalen Green we have over here as well. Totally fine. Plus matchup against the Spurs. Bogdanovic has got to see Andre Hunt out. So that should solidify his minutes. And I don't think anyone's going to pay 68 for Bogdan. So I like him quite a bit. And point guard, Luka should be popular. I think I slightly prefer Halliburton for almost 1,000 less. The Pistons are awful. We're going to be playing some of those Pistons tonight, so I do like Halliburton a lot as a run back in tournaments. Cade Cunningham again. Giddey you can play here. Jamal Murray, also a decent price on DK for 76. Don't mind Sohan if you're playing a lot of Rockets, if you're playing Van Vliet or Şengün or whoever, Jabari Smith. Sohan is an okay guy to run it back with in a GPP. And Terry Rozier gets a lot of usage with LaMelo Ball out, starting at the point. Maybe some sticker shock at 83, but I don't mind that at all.
All right. I like it. We can start getting to some QQs here. I do just have one set of lineups that I'm going to have to get in. We'll go to the RotoGrinders Discord chat first, followed by the YouTube chat. Favorite stud for GPPs, Taylor, and also your favorite value.
Favorite stud is either Embiid or Halliburton. If you want to pay down at center, I would say Halliburton. I think he's just going to go largely overlooked on this slate, and he probably should not. Favorite value is probably Nick Richards, but if you want to go deep into the salary pool, you can go with Muscala if you're feeling frisky.
If you're feeling frisky, I like it. Where is my next one here? How is Luka a core play on FanDuel where his ownership is 1.4%? If I lock him in, the lineup projection is 7% lower than optimal because we now have a lot of value, and also because he could put up 90 points today, and then that median projection we're not going to be worried about as much. Tim, FanDuel GPP, last piece, Atlanta Bogdanovic or Sadiq Bey?
Bogdanovic.
All right. Apologies here. Just getting my lineup load in, and bang, good to go. QQ, is Dean the greatest host at RotoGrinders from We Want Dean? Yes, he absolutely is. I give Dean a hard time a lot. He's a fool. He makes some ridiculous arguments for no reason at all, but he is the best host around. Nobody can manage a long show with a lot to talk about, nothing to talk about. Doesn't matter. He absolutely crushes it. DK Cash, Tim, or Cash and GPP. So Tim, I'll throw it to you. Beef stew or Ouster Thompson at small forward?
That's really tough, but I think it's beef stew. Alex Caruso ruled out, just so everyone knows.
Alex Caruso ruled out. I think that makes somebody like Ayo Dosunmu playable. And it also affirms Kobe White and DeMar DeRozan a little bit. For what it's worth, I'm not changing anything to get Ayo Dosunmu into any lineups right now. FanDuel GPP and single entry with all the value. Can you guys give your top 3 scrub plays? So Taylor, you said it was your 7. I'm not gonna put words in your mouth. Who are your 3?
Richards is probably the guy that stands out the most for me. Muscala's fine. Jericho Sims, if he starts, I guess. The problem is they're all at the same position, so it's a little tough. I guess among the non-centers, it would be Isaiah Joe for me.
DK GPP, 100% Yurt 7 or one lineup with Hartenstein. Tim, what do you think?
I'd say just go all in.
DK GPP, Sadiq Bey or Jabari Smith-Taylor?
I think Bey should be a little more contrarian. I don't know if anyone's really going to react to that DeAndre Hunter thing. So Bey for the ownership discount.
Tim, so no Muscala and DK Cash?
That's not the way that I'm going. I certainly would not blame you if you go that way, but I'm not doing that. I'm going Richards and Yurt 7. That's what
Taylor, are we guessing Tim Hardaway doesn't play tonight?
That's what I would guess, just because he's downgraded to questionable. We just got news that Chris Middleton is not actually on the injury report. So a Bulls beat writer errantly tweeted that he's out, but apparently he's in. FYI.
Love NBA DFS. Tim, Sexton is popping on FanDuel now. How do you rank him, Seth Curry, and Fontecchio for cash?
Ooh. Probably go. Man, let me just check here. So it's Sexton and who else?
Fontecchio and Seth Curry, assuming Hardaway's out.
Well, if we assume that Hardaway's out, then I like Curry the most, and then followed by Sexton.
All right. DKGPP, Taylor, Ouster Thompson or Isaiah Stewart?
I would say Thompson. I think Stewart will be more popular.
FanDuel Cash Tim 3v3, Denny, Butler, and Hartenstein or Beasley, MPJ, and Kuz? I think you want to restart. If it's the first one, but I think you want to restart and pick something new.
Yeah. I don't really like the first one, but it's definitely the first one over the second one.
All right. Transferring to the YouTube chat here. Make sure you're smashing that like button. CW89 says Hartenstein isn't starting now. We don't know for sure yet. They've said that they are considering starting Jericho Sims, but we do not know for sure who is going to be starting. Any word on Minnesota, Jaden Daniels? I believe he is a game time decision. They just switched him from questionable to game time decision when they updated Anthony Edwards. Jericho Sims, another question. Like for me personally, I'm getting about 20% Jericho Sims today, assuming he starts. If he's not starting, I will take him all out after lock and try and get as much Hartenstein as I can alongside Yurt 7. But as long as he's starting, I'm okay with like 20% Jericho Sims in GPPs. FanDuel Cash Tim, Nickeil Alexander, Walker, and Bane, or Herder and Butler?
The first one.
GPPs from Darren Unger, Taylor, Kelly O, or Hartenstein?
Kelly O if Hartenstein comes off the bench for me.
Jason Garnett wants to know any love for Kamara starting for Grant today in a GPP, Taylor?
That's a little thin, I think, for this slate. He's okay, but I would prefer somebody else.
Kelly O or Hart. Oh, we asked that one already. Embiid's dropping 100 points on Mike Muscala, right, Tim?
It would not surprise me.
FanDuel GPP, Taylor, Paul George, Desmond Bane.
I think I prefer Bane.
All right. Tim, Io or Isaiah Joe in a GPP?
I think Joe.
All right. I'll switch it back to Discord, see if we got anything else. No, that seems to be it for Discord. That's it for the YouTube chat. Oh, we got one more here on YouTube for now. Olynyk or Yurt 7 on DraftKings. Yurt 7 is the clear cash game play, but I do think Kelly Olynyk is a great tournament pivot today. So I made a rule in GPPs in my 150 max set. I want to have at least one of them per lineup. At least one of them per lineup. And I have 80% Yurt 7 and I have 20% Kelly Olynyk today. So that's kind of how I would do it too. If I was playing 5 lineups, I would have one with Kelly O and the other 4 I'd have with Yurt 7. DK GPP Taylor, Isaiah Joe or Seth Curry, assuming that Tim Hardaway Jr. is out.
I think if he's out, then I would side with Curry slightly.
All right. Jalen Williams or Bojan Bogdanovic in a DK GPP, Tim?
I think I'd go with Jalen Williams.
All right. Is Fox okay in a DK GPP, Taylor?
He's fine. I prefer other spends at point guard, but that game has some shootout potential and no one's playing it, so fine with that.
Okay, we got 3 minutes to lock. Make sure you get your lineups in. I didn't realize that Sexton was going to pop, and so I actually did just to get some more exposure to that game. I'm quickly putting a new set of builds in now that included Colin Sexton and Talen Horton-Tucker both in my pool because I did not have them in there previously. And if they're popping in projections, I want to make sure that I'm getting to a little bit of them as well. And that just gets me off the early guys a little bit and onto the later ones a little bit more. Tim, is Kevin Love playable in a GPP tonight?
No, definitely not.
For what it's worth, I currently have 8% Kevin Love, but that was before all of the value earlier opened up. Shoot, that game does start right at 7 o'clock. Let's see if I can do a quick player replace here, get him out of those lineups. Embiid or Doncic? Who do you got more exposure to in GPPs, Taylor?
I have more Embiid, but it's kind of, actually I have more Doncic just because I have more cheap centers, but love Embiid for all the reasons I previously stated.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's Embiid
Hardaway's out.
Tim Hardaway Jr. ruled out. So that is going to be important. It makes Seth Curry a core cash game play, Tim said. And then additionally, it opens up some other players for tournaments like Jaden Hardy as well. I'm going to adjust that after lock. Let's see. Do we got anything else in Discord? No, we don't. Tim, give me a feel it in your plums play of the night.
Cade Cunningham goes for over 55 DK points.
I like it. Taylor, how about you?
I will go with Asar Thompson grabbing 20 rebounds now that he's starting.
I love the Asar Thompson call. I am really big on him today. Let me look at my exposures. I'm going to go, my feel in my plums play of the day. I'm going to say a incredibly low owned, going under the radar. Karl Anthony Towns puts up 60 DK points tonight.
Emmanuel Quickly is out.
Emmanuel Quickly is out. Maybe that makes DiVincenzo viable. I'm not doing anything with that since Jalen Brunson's
I think that really helps Josh Hart quite a bit.
Yeah, part two, I agree. I think that helps him the most. DK Cash, are you okay with Jalen Green as a last piece, Tim?
67. I guess so. I mean, not really, but I don't mind getting exposure to that game, so I guess it's okay.
I think that's going to do it. 1 minute left to lock. Make sure you get your lineups in. Hit the like button on the way out. Make sure you subscribe. Hit the notification bell. And we are going to have the NFL crew coming in for pre-lock later as well, because we still got 2 Monday Night Football games today on top of the 13-game NBA slate, 4-game NHL slate. And if you're playing some NFL tonight, you can use SimLabs to generate DFS lineups through the power of simulation. Combines data from every aspect of the slate to churn out lineups that match your preferences. In just a few clicks, you can have hundreds of well-built correlated lineups ready to go for whatever contest type you're playing. Be sure to check out the link in our description for more info. All Combo and NFL Premium subscribers have access to NFL SimLabs tool at the moment, so make sure you're checking that out. And we also have the props and pick'em package, brand new right now. The experts at the RotoGrinders Projections team take our premium stats and comb through the market for any inefficiencies using our prop model. You can easily check which lines are off, where to find them, and how likely the prop will be to hit based on our tool. Check out the link in our description for more info. Good luck tonight, everyone. Good luck in basketball, hockey, football, whatever you're playing. One more question quick. Josh Hart or Taylor Horton Tucker? Tim, which one you like there better with Quickly out?
Hart. I like Hart.
Agreed.
Hart, get him in there. That'll do it on behalf of myself, Tim, Taylor, Steve behind the scenes. Good luck tonight, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. You have been crushed.